Every single survival kit you've ever been sold was designed by people who never spent a winter starving in the Rockies. The men who did, the mountain men of the 1800s, ate things that would make a modern survival instructor flinch. Raw organs ripped still warm from a carcass, bone marrow cracked out of femurs and slurped like butter, blood mixed with rendered fat and drunk cold. And they didn't just survive, they thrived. They outwalked, outworked, and outlasted every modern solution we've ever engineered to replace what they knew. A single pound of what they carried delivered 3,500 calories, 4 times what a modern military MRE provides. What they built wasn't a ration, it was a system. And somewhere between 1840 and today, we decided we knew better. We didn't. And the consequences have been written all over us ever since. Picture the northern Rockies in late October 1823. The temperature has dropped well below zero. The wind moves through the ponderosa pines like something alive, and the ground is iron-hard frozen clay. A man named Hugh Glass is crawling, literally crawling, on his hands and knees through the South Dakota Badlands, his leg broken, his back torn open by a grizzly bear so thoroughly that his exposed ribs are visible through the wounds. He has no rifle, no knife, no fire kit. The 2 men paid to stay with him until he died. One of them, a 19-year-old Jim Bridger, have already stripped him of his gear and gone. He has nothing but the land around him and whatever knowledge lives in his body. And yet Hugh Glass is going to cover more than 200 miles of open wilderness in the dead of approaching winter and walk into Fort Kiowa alive. The question isn't how he survived the bear mauling. The question is what he ate on that crawl, because Hugh Glass didn't starve. He found a buffalo calf killed by a wolf pack, waited for the wolves to take what they wanted, and then moved in and claimed the rest, starting, as every experienced man in the wilderness instinctively knew to do, with the organs, the liver first, the kidneys, the heart, the warm, iron-rich blood still pooling in the chest cavity. Then he cracked the long bones open with a rock and dug out the marrow with a stick. He ate what we have been taught to consider disgusting, and it kept him alive when nothing else on earth could have. He was not desperate. He was precise. So here is my question for you before we go any further. Have you ever actually looked at the ingredient list on a commercial energy bar or survival ration? Really looked at it? Because there is something deeply wrong with what we've convinced ourselves counts as emergency food. Drop your answer in the comments and tell me this. When did you first start suspecting that modern survival food was missing something? Because what you're about to discover will change how you see every prepared food, every camping ration, and every so-called emergency kit you've ever owned. Let's talk about what modern survival food actually is. Pick up a standard military MRE. A meal ready to eat. It weighs about 22 ounces and delivers roughly 1,250 calories. The macronutrient breakdown is 51% carbohydrate. It contains fortified synthetic vitamins that degrade with heat and time. The shelf life is listed at 3 to 5 years under controlled temperature storage, and the U.S. Army itself limits consumption to a maximum of 21 consecutive days. 21 days. After that, the nutritional profile starts actively creating deficiencies. Now compare that to what a mountain man carried, a pound of traditional pemmican, the survival food engineered by plains tribes over thousands of years and adopted by every fur trapper who wanted to stay alive, contained 3,500 calories. That is 4 times the caloric density per pound. It required no refrigeration. It required no preparation. It needed no heating element, no chemical packet, no instructions on the side. And properly sealed in rawhide, it lasted not years, but decades. The British Army confirmed during the Boer War that pemmican stored in sealed containers remained fully edible after that long. One food, no packaging line, no synthetic additives, and it completely demolished everything we have since built to replace it. Here is where it becomes important to understand what actually happened, because this was not an accident. The mountain men did not stumble onto these foods by luck or desperation. They learned from the plains tribes who had spent thousands of years refining a nutritional system for exactly the conditions that wilderness demanded. And when the fur trade era collapsed around 1840, when beaver felt hats fell from European fashion and the great annual rendezvous dissolved into memory, the knowledge didn't disappear cleanly. It eroded slowly, one convenience at a time. The Transcontinental Railroad arrived in 1869. Refrigerated rail cars followed in the 1880s. Suddenly, fresh muscle meat was available everywhere, year-round, and the survival incentive to render bone grease or dry and pound organ meats into compact cakes simply evaporated. The meat-packing industry centralized. Victorian culture recast organ meats as lower-class food. Crisco arrived in 1911. And then the institutional blow landed in 1977 when the McGovern Committee published the first federal dietary guidelines recommending Americans limit animal fat and meat, guidelines shaped heavily by Ansel Keys' diet heart hypothesis and by intensive lobbying from grain and sugar industries. The 1992 USDA food pyramid placed grains at the base and fat at the very tip. We had officially institutionally inverted the macronutrient ratios that had kept people alive in extreme cold for thousands of years. And then the system turned around and blamed you for the consequences. You are not broken. Your body is not broken. You were handed a broken set of instructions by institutions that prioritized industrial profit over the survival knowledge of people who actually had to survive. That is the only failure here, not yours. Now, let's go deep. Because the mountain men weren't eating randomly. Every disgusting thing they put in their mouths had a precise physiological logic behind it, a logic that modern nutritional science has spent decades slowly and reluctantly confirming. The first thing, eating organs before muscle meat. When Hugh Glass moved to that bison calf's liver before anything else on the carcass, he was instinctively addressing his most acute nutritional deficiency. Beef liver contains 4,968 micrograms of vitamin A per 100 grams. That is 552% of the daily recommended value in a single serving. It delivers 59 micrograms of vitamin B12, which is 2,471% of daily value, compared to regular sirloin steaks 1.4 micrograms, 42 times more. It provides 290 micrograms of folate, 48 times more than steak, 98 times more copper, and when eaten raw and fresh, liver contains up to 23.6 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams, enough to prevent scurvy entirely, at a time when scurvy was killing sailors and soldiers across the civilized world. Think of liver as the original multivitamin. Except this one actually worked. Because the nutrients were bound to whole food compounds the body has been recognizing for 1,000,000 years, not synthetic isolates manufactured in a lab that pass through or degrade before absorption. Every man in a trapping party who ate organs first was executing something chemically precise without knowing a single word of the chemistry. The body knows, it has always known. The second thing, drinking blood. This sounds horrifying to modern ears, and it's worth sitting with that discomfort for a moment because the discomfort is cultural, not biological. Fresh bison blood is rich in heme iron, the most bioavailable form of iron that exists, absorbed at a rate 2 to 3 times higher than non-heme plant iron. It contains readily available complete proteins, electrolytes including sodium and potassium, and fat-soluble vitamins drawn directly from the animal's own tissue stores. In extreme cold, with caloric expenditure running at 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day, and iron loss accumulating through sweat, exertion, and wound healing. Drinking blood was a rapid iron and electrolyte replacement that no modern sports drink has ever come close to matching. It is not primitive. It is not desperation. It is precision nutrition without the label. The third thing, rendering bone marrow and bone grease. This is where the real engineering happened, the part that reveals just how sophisticated these people actually were. Bone marrow contains roughly 770 calories per 100 grams when roasted, making it one of the most calorie-dense whole foods in nature. Its fat profile runs 65 to 80%, primarily monounsaturated oleic acid, the same fat celebrated in olive oil. It delivers vitamin E at 4 times the concentration found in muscle meat, plus significant B12, iron, and phosphorus. But the deeper process, bone grease rendering, practiced across the plains for thousands of years, took this further still. Cleaned, crushed bones were placed in water-filled vessels and boiled using fire-heated stones transferred into wooden buckets. The rendered fat rose to the surface and was skimmed with horn ladles. One ethnographic record from Nunavut villagers documented the scale of labor involved: 60 pounds of heated stones, 3 backloads of firewood, 2 hours of sustained boiling, to yield 1 7-ounce cake of pure bone grease. That single cake was nearly pure caloric density, with months of shelf life in cold conditions. Think of it as a handmade battery: compressed, portable, long-lasting energy extracted through patient-skilled labor rather than industrial chemistry. And it formed the critical fat component of the most important survival food ever engineered. The fourth thing, pemmican. The word comes from the Cree language, pemmican, and the product itself was the logistical backbone of the entire North American fur trade. Without it, the 4,000-mile canoe routes between Montreal and the Athabasca country were physically impossible. Here is exactly how it was made. Bison meat was sliced thin and dried on racks over slow fire for 2 or more days until completely brittle. It takes 5 to 6 pounds of fresh meat to yield 1 pound of dried meat, which tells you immediately how much dead water weight modern food carries that you're paying for and hauling on your back for nothing. The dried meat was spread on tanned hide and beaten with wooden flails until reduced to near powder. Separately, suet and bone marrow fat were slowly rendered into clear liquid tallow over low heat. The fat was poured into the powdered meat at roughly a 1-to-1 ratio by weight. Dried berries, Saskatoon, chokecherry, blueberry were sometimes pounded in. The mixture was packed hot into rawhide bags called parfleche, each holding about 90 pounds. One buffalo yielded 1 90-pound bag. That bag delivered 3,500 calories per pound with a macronutrient split of approximately 79% fat and 20% protein, precisely the ratio that keeps a cold weather body burning fat instead of glucose, so generating sustained heat and energy without the insulin crash that carbohydrate metabolism guarantees. The French-Canadian voyageurs, who paddled 14 to 18 hours a day on the fur trade routes, consumed 1.5 to 2 pounds of pemmican daily and covered 35 miles through open wilderness on those rations alone. 2 pounds of pemmican is 7,000 calories, carried in your hands, no stove required. And pemmican was so strategically irreplaceable that a war was literally fought over its supply. The Pemmican War of 1814 to 1821, sparked when Governor Miles Macdonell issued the Pemmican Proclamation banning exports from the Red River Colony, strangled the Northwest Company's supply lines, and escalated into open armed conflict. On June 19, 1816, 60 mounted Métis fighters, led by Cuthbert Grant, clashed with Governor Robert Semple and 28 Hudson's Bay Company men near the forks of the Red River. 21 HBC men died, including Semple himself, against 1 Métis casualty. The conflict ended only when the British government forced the two companies to merge in 1821. A food caused a war. Let that land for a moment. That is how irreplaceable pemmican was, not as a preference, but as the physical foundation of an entire continental economy. If you're finding this valuable, hit like right now, because we're just reaching the part where the science finally catches up to what these men already knew. The fifth thing, understanding rabbit starvation and why modern survival rations recreate the exact condition that killed people. Here is the part that should genuinely make you angry, because modern survival culture still instructs people to hunt lean game and eat it plain. That advice can kill you. The condition known as protein poisoning, called rabbit starvation by the mountain men, occurs when protein exceeds roughly 35% of total caloric intake with inadequate fat to balance it. The liver's urea cycle, The mechanism responsible for processing excess dietary protein becomes overwhelmed. Symptoms begin with diarrhea and nausea, progress to persistent headache and crushing fatigue, and within weeks, advance toward organ failure. Hudson's Bay Company trappers died of it in good hunting country, surrounded by abundant rabbit. The Greely Arctic expedition of 1881 to 1884 lost 19 of 25 men. My mountain men understood this not as theory, but as lived reality. The fat portions of every animal, back fat, kidney suit, hump meat, bone marrow, were always claimed first by the experienced men before anything else was touched. Lean muscle meat was secondary. Modern survival rations, with their carbohydrate-heavy, low-fat macronutrient profiles, reproduced the exact metabolic trap that killed those men. The industry replaced the solution with the problem and packaged it in foil with a 5-year shelf life. The sixth thing, fermented and aged meat. Mountain men didn't always have access to fresh kills. What they had was often old, sometimes putrid by modern standards, and rather than discard it, they ate it because wasting calories in the wilderness was a death sentence. And because experience had taught them that cold-aged meat did not kill you. Aged bison meat left to partially ferment in cold conditions was, by multiple contemporary accounts, actually preferred over fresh, softer in texture, more deeply flavored, and easier to chew through cracked winter lips. The fermentation process begins breaking down collagen and connective tissue before the meat ever reaches the stomach, effectively pre-digesting protein and reducing the body's digestive workload at precisely the moment when every calorie of metabolic energy matters. Inuit communities practice deliberate controlled fermentation, aged walrus and caribou, called iguanak, and maintained exceptional physical health on these diets for generations. The modern terror of aged animal protein is not nutritional science. It is squeamishness that got dressed up in policy language. So, why did we abandon all of this? 3 reasons, and they compound each other with brutal efficiency. Speed. The industrial era demanded food produced fast and at massive scale. Pemmican required skilled labor, Native American and Métis women who understood precise fat ratios, correct drying temperatures, and proper rendering technique developed across generations. You cannot automate generational knowledge. Cost. Industrial meat packing could produce muscle meat cheaply and in enormous volume. Organ meats became byproduct, then waste, then culturally stigmatized as substandard food for people who couldn't afford better. And technology, refrigeration, canning, and later freeze-drying made preservation possible without traditional knowledge. And each new technology arrived feeling like progress, like liberation. Each one quietly stripped something essential. The hidden cost was systemic fragility, dependence on supply chains, on electricity, on the unbroken infrastructure of industrial civilization. The mountain men carried their calories on their backs and manufactured more from whatever the land provided. We carry credit cards and quietly hope the supply chain holds. Now here is what you can actually do with this knowledge. Option 1. The easiest starting point. Find a source for quality organ meats. Grass-fed beef liver is available at most independent butchers and increasingly at farmers markets. Ask specifically for grass-fed. The fat-soluble vitamin content is meaningfully higher than grain-fed. Let's start with 50 grams twice a week, a piece roughly the size of a deck of cards. That small amount is enough to begin correcting the vitamin A, B12, folate, and copper deficiencies that modern Western diets produce almost universally. You don't have to love the taste immediately, you just have to start. Option 2. The intermediate move. Make pemmican yourself. You need exactly 2 core ingredients: lean beef, ideally eye of round, and beef tallow or sweet. Slice the beef as thin as possible and dry it in an oven set to 160 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 to 8 hours until completely brittle with no moisture remaining. Grind it or pound it to near powder in a sealed bag with a mallet. Render your tallow or suet over the lowest possible heat setting until fully liquid and clear of solids. Mix equal parts by weight of powdered meat and liquid fat. Pour into a lined pan or silicone molds. Let it set completely at room temperature, then cut into bars. Store in sealed containers in a cool, dark place. That is the entire process. No lab, no factory, no subscription, no ingredient list longer than 2 items. Shelf life in proper storage, months to years. Option 3, the absolute minimum. Learn to read a survival ration label for what it's actually telling you. If carbohydrates are the dominant macronutrient, that product was not designed for sustained cold weather physiological endurance. It was designed for cost efficiency and palatability scores. If it contains no animal fat and no organ-derived nutrients, it is optimized for shelf appeal, not survival. And if it requires controlled temperature storage to hit its stated shelf life, it is fragile. A product designed for profit looks very different from a system designed for survival. Now you know the difference. Hugh Glass was not a desperate primitive eating revolting things in a moment of madness. He was a practical physiological engineer, solving a precise caloric and micronutrient problem with the finest tools the wilderness offered. Tools that 2 centuries of nutritional science have since confirmed were exactly correct. The mountain men were not surviving in spite of their diet. They were surviving because of it. The knowledge was never lost. It was traded away, exchanged for convenience, for industrial scale, for the seductive idea that a factory staffed by engineers could improve on 10,000 years of human experience under genuine survival pressure. It couldn't, and now you know exactly what was there before, and exactly how to bring it back. We are digging up the survival knowledge that the modern food system left behind, the real methods, the real science, the real history of what kept human beings alive when survival was the only option on the table. Subscribe to join us on that investigation and tell us in the comments, what topic do you want us to go after next? What piece of buried knowledge do you think we've been most deliberately kept from finding?